Welcome. My name is John Paul Dabrowski, and this is On the Journey with John Paul. This is my podcast, and it's all about getting started, doing the things that are important, pursuing the things that I really believe in, that I love. And what I found in my life is that when people are sharing things that actually connect with them in their heart, what they're sharing penetrates and really hits the place in my heart that can be receptive to it. And when things are forced or overly intellectual or ideal, it just doesn't connect the same way. And I'm a therapist. I believe in healing, and I believe that healing has to kind of first come from our own journey. And so, to me, what On the Journey is about is kind of an inside look at the things that I'm learning, the things that are shifting for me. And I like to think of it kind of as a personal journal, not a performance, not an attempt to be successful. I hope this is really successful. There's a hope in my heart, but that's not what's the leading edge of this. The leading edge of this is the desire to share. And there's this word that describes goodness. I always say it wrong, and I always feel really uncomfortable saying it because, well, you'll see why. But the word is fecundity. And what fecundity means is it's the tendency of goodness to be dispersive. That goodness, by its very nature, spreads and shares and grows all on its own. And I think the perfect kind of description of fecundity is in the springtime. And in the springtime, there's just quite literally something in the air. And so I've been so blessed by so many things that aren't about deserving. I don't know exactly what they're about. See, I even hesitate to call them blessings because, one of the deep struggles for me in theology and in my faith is understanding, like, okay, well, how is it? It's a question of suffering, of course. How is it that suffering can be in the world? But it's even maybe more pointedly like, God, how is it that you could create a world in which there's people who, because of their circumstances, don't have opportunities for freedom? And because of the pain and abuse and torture that they've undergone in their life, they take on the burdens of that torture and act it out themselves. So I hesitate to say, like, I feel scandalized by the blessings that I've received in this life. And that's probably the best way to put it. But rather than getting caught up in that scandal, although I think it's important to be rooted in it and to connect to it, I find myself reflecting and sitting kind of fundamentally with the scripture, to whom much is given, much is expected. And that line used to weigh heavily on my shoulders like a burden. But it doesn't anymore. It feels like an invitation. It feels like a welcoming. It feels like being drawn into something deeper. One of the things that I've been learning in my life is that, like, man, none of this is mine. None of it is mine. And I think I just got distracted because, cars driving by. And even there, it's so interesting, right? I'm feeling this tenderness, I'm feeling this sense of deepening. I'm feeling this softening in my heart, this opening, this expansion. And then some neighbor drives by and immediately I go, and I suck up, right? Because what am I afraid of? I'm afraid of judgment. I'm afraid of, man, what are they going to think seeing me try to record a video? I just think those moments and those opportunities are so worthy of exploration. But I really, really, really have come deeply to believe this, that none of this is mine. It's not from my own merits. It's not from my work. It's not from deserving. It's not from earning. And so there's a deep theme in my life that I'm trying to live more deeply from, and that is that at best, we are stewards. At best, we're stewards. And I don't know how much space and time I have to go into all this today. I don't think a whole lot. But I'll bring you right to the center of it, a really transformative shift that's occurred in my spirituality, that's occurred after years of prayer, years of mindfulness meditation, years of exploring the self and the psyche, years of understanding wounds and baggage, and years of studying psychology, counseling, becoming a therapist, doing my own therapeutic work, healing. And I think this quote really is going to be just a shift in my life. It was a shift in my life, and I think I'm really going to see it as a moment of awakening. I was listening to this YouTube short, and it was Jim Carrey. And he said, I've played a lot of characters. Jim Carrey's a great character. I'm just lucky to have had the part, and everybody's laughing. It's like, no, but really. And then he says, I used to experience myself as a man interacting with the universe, but I don't see it like that anymore. And he says, now I know that I am the universe experiencing a man. And in that moment, so much of the practice of mindfulness and prayer and spirituality and all these things kind of came together to me as I reformulated that for myself. And I said, I used to experience myself as a man seeking God's love and compassion. But now, I experience myself as God's love and compassion, seeking a man. Now, this is not some steady state of awakening of euphoria. It's never like that. Right? Christ always says, go and sin no more. It's not, you're healed, now you're in heaven. It's go, continue to live. Right? We're going to be constantly in these cycles. I like this framework, these cycles of expansion and contraction. Expansion, where it feels like these spiritual insights, this peace, this awakening. Contraction, when it feels like I got to figure everything out. I have to be protective. I'm overwhelmed. I've learned that process of expansion and contraction is just the norm. It's not like a problem, it's just the norm. But after having this experience, I was telling one of my best friends, Mike Crosby, about this, and we were talking about prayer and spirituality, and one of the things he said is that either he was reading or that he's found that there's kind of two different paths of spirituality, or two different dimensions, or kind of how I came to think of it. That one is the ego relationship with God, son to father. This is a personal, lived relational, right? One self to another self. One person, me, John Paul, to another person, God or Christ. But there's a second dimension to spirituality. And this is the dimension of Christ saying, the kingdom of God is within you. It's already here. And this is the direct approach, whereas the first would be the progressive approach. But the direct approach is, and I think this is called theophysis in the Orthodox tradition. I could be wrong, and someone can correct me on that one. And I think it's either St. Athanasius or perhaps St. Anthony that says something like, God became man so that man will become God. And the second dimension is this fact that all is God, this unitive dimension, that God is in the ground that we step on. He's in the trees. He's in the human heart. He's in the breath. He's in the wind. That God is not separate from man, but God is a part of man. God is infused, that He's here right now. And this is one of the things that I wish that I could have learned earlier. I don't mind that so much now, but I hope more can learn it. That God's here right now. He's here right now. You don't have to wait. You don't have to become holier. Holy just means relationship to God. Let's lose the word holy, because we think holy means I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to be pious, I have to do this. Stop waiting. God's here. He's here right now. And I think what this connects me to is the story of the prodigal son. One of my favorite lines in that is, from a long way off, the father saw the son and ran out to meet him. There is no shame. There is no self-hatred. There is no blame. That's all human, right? That all comes from the other son. That's not God. That's man. This story beautifully articulates human projections. And even in that, I love what the father says to the second son and the prodigal son. He says, and this is this experience of unity, of expansion, of presence, that God's already here. He says, son, I am always with you. And everything I have is yours. What keeps us from God is the belief that we have to do something to meet Him. He's here. He's in my heart. I'm trying to make more space. I'm trying to get out of the way. I'm trying to purify. But this dimension has really kind of broken open my prayer life of there's two dimensions to my spirituality. One in which I'm a man seeking God. One in which I'm journaling to God. One in which I have different parts of me. And I can connect with God. And the second dimension of this spirituality is that God's already here. That God says the kingdom of heaven is is within you. The kingdom of heaven is within you. It's here. It's here now. You don't have to wait. You don't have to become holier to have a relationship with God. God is the relationship of compassion. Like, guys, Christ was hanging out with the prostitutes, with the tax collectors. If Christ was coming today, I don't think he'd be hanging out at church on Sundays. I think he'd be down in the back alleys with the heroin addicts. And Christ's compassion is coming for us. Our projections on other people, our projections on ourselves is what stops that. Yeah. You don't have to wait. You don't have to. Both of these things are important. Both the progressive path and the direct path. The progressive path says that we have to do these things in order to experience this thing. We have to behave in these ways, be virtuous, be upright, follow the Ten Commandments in order to experience, in order to be close to God. The direct path is God's love, kindness, compassion, mercy is already here. God is already pursuing you. I think both of these things stand. I don't think we should polarize on one side or the other. The important thing is to acknowledge that both exist in the same vein at the same time. But this has changed everything for me. That I am God's compassion, experiencing a man. So what do I have to be afraid of? Where's shame? I am God's compassion, meeting shame in my own heart. What this has done is it's given me courage to go. I have so many, I've been working recently, talk about IFS, I'm sure, internal family systems theory, but this idea that we have different parts of us, and when we experience very difficult, painful experiences, parts of us get burdened and stuck at that developmental age. And they carry that burden. Oftentimes the burdens that they carry are big emotions, are problematic behavioral patterns, are dysfunctional ways of coping. And so there's this 12-year-old boy that I'm working with to unburden him because the parts are not the burdens. The parts are holding the burdens. And once we purify the burdens, then the part can be free. So I have this young 12-year-old boy that's been burdened, and I think it's starting to shift with believing that nobody can help him. Right? I can see him. He's crying on the edge of the bed. He's 12 years old. And as a man, I'm like, oh, I don't know how to experience that little boy. Like, man, big feelings, those seem like, I don't know what's going to happen. What's going to happen? Like, yeah, you know what? I would rather just, like, not connect with that little boy. Rather just, like, watch a movie, drink a beer, do some work, get away from my body, get away from my experience. Because it feels too overwhelming for me as a person. But in this space of I am God's compassion, let the children come to me, right? Like, what do I have to be afraid of in a little 12-year-old boy's emotions? It's not too big for me. And so this is the journey. I'm on the journey. That's the name of this. On the Journey with JP. I'm on the journey. I'm also already there. Because there's this balance between this journeying approach and the fact that we're already there. All that we seek is here in the present moment. I have to learn how to access it. I have to learn how to step into it. So keep it up. Keep working. Keep praying. Keep looking. Keep asking. keep showing up. And we'll continue on the journey.